We're going to do this last video on this 256 rake. Started on it last fall, finished it up, used it to rake about 20 some acres of hay with no problems. Go through and show you what I've done to it and then some extra stuff that I hadn't made a video on. Right wheel, replaced the dog spring, adjusted the bearings in the spindle housing on the right wheel spindle. Here we checked the U-joints on the drive shaft, adjusted the bearings on the right rear, on the left drive wheel spindle, adjusted the bearings on it, replaced the drive dog and spring on the left wheel. This yoke right here where the bolt goes through was wore oblong, built it back up with a welder, took a Dremel tool and ground it out just enough for the bolt to go through. This drive shaft here was new, so we didn't have to do anything to it. We rebuilt the gearbox, new bearing seals, made it a little bit better, waterproof. You can see that in another video. And one thing I wanted to mention, the yoke inside that throws it in and out of gear, make sure you check the ends that goes in the groove on the clutch. These was wore pretty bad, so I took, cleaned it up, brazed up the ends, and then filed them back down where they had fit back in the groove on the clutch, because they was about wore out. Went through the tongue jack, put a new bolt in the top. It was almost broke. Put a new spring on the latch pin along with a flat washer because the hole was walled out so bad that didn't want the spring to come through. Took the jack completely apart to make sure it was all right. Okay, the knobs, we bored those out and put a piece of plastic tubing in there. You can see how I did that on one of my other videos. But when you replace these bolts, make sure the plain shank is as long as what you're going through with no threads. I had to cut these bolts off, but the plain shank, if you don't, the threads are just going to wear out what you've done. The springs on the height adjustment, this one was broke in 10 pieces. This one was broken 4. So I replaced both of those, and when I pull this one apart, if you got one that's broke, make sure you either chain up your basket to your main frame and pull it out, because this shaft underneath this spring was cut over half in two, so I had to take a welder and build it back up and grind it down, because it wouldn't have been long before it would have broke. And if you need any parts for these things, which where I got these springs is Joe's Machinery out of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. You can go to the website. I think it's listed under Lancaster Farming or Joe's Machinery. They got a online catalog or one you can download, and they got parts for rakes and hay binds and harvester, New Holland stuff. So if you need any parts, just Joe's Machinery out of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Okay, this pivot bracket on the height adjustment was wore pretty bad. Didn't have no grease fit in it. The little plastic bushing that was in it was wore completely out. So I took a short piece about 1 inch longer than what I needed, 3/4 PVC conduit, and drove it in there and sawed it flush on each side, and then bored it out to a 7/8. Polished up the shaft with sandpaper and a wire brush, and then drilled me a hole from a grease fitting and put a grease fitting in it on both sides, so it can be greased and it should last forever. Pulled all the tine bar off of it, checked the bearings. We had 3 bad bearings in it. We added a grease fitting to the housing on each end of the tine bar so we could grease those bearings. Okay, this is the old style tine bar bearings. You can see it's got 12 balls in it. The inner race is in 2 pieces. That's the old style. The new ones have got 8 ball bearings that's caged. But if you want to, you can press them off. Just be very careful. You can change the bearings if you need the bearing number. It's 6204 2RS-12 or -3/4. Its metric OD is 47 millimeters OD diameter, 14 millimeters wide with a 3/4 bore. And this is one I had when I was taking it off. I believe it was the last time bar I pulled. The nut seized up on it, and I rounded out this Allen socket end on the bolt. Couldn't go either way, so I pulled it out on the flat side of the star and took a bandsaw, portable bandsaw, and sawed it off. And then I welded me a piece of 1/2 inch threaded rod to it so I could pull it out of the time bar housing. Had to buy that complete thing right there. And then these spacers that go on after the bearing is on, I had to make a couple of those. I just used a 3/4 shaft collar with the Allen screw in it. It fits a little loose, but once you get it together and press it together and tighten the Allen screw and then put it on, it ain't going anywhere. And the way I cut the groove, I just had me a jig made and put it in a drill press with a big rasp file and cut me a groove with a rubber washer that goes on there. And the rubber washer, I picked it up at a hardware. It's 1.5 inch OD. The inside diameter don't matter because I'm using a piece of 3/4 pipe nipple I sharpened down to cut out me a center so it'll fit over the spacer to cover the bearing. If you're using a rubber seal bearing, you get ready to install it, pop one side out that goes next to the head, just pop that seal out. So if you put grease fittings in the end of your time bar housings, it'll have a way to get the grease. That's what's left of the adjustment crank springs. You can see they're broke up pretty bad, so that's the reason I say make sure you check yours, make sure it's not cutting into your lift shaft like it did this one. And if you need the bearing numbers for to rebuild a gearbox, you need 3 sets of Timken set 6. You need 1 Timken set 2, and you need 2 oil seals. That'll completely rebuild your gearbox, unless you need some machine bushings to put between your gears and your bearings to space the gears closer together, because they will wear on the back side like this one did on the Rake I worked on. If you need gasket material, these old Coke cartons make good gasket material, or your cartons that your favorite adult beverage comes in works good too. They may be slick on one side, but they're really tough and they make good gaskets. That's what I use for the gearbox cover and the hub to the star gasket. That's what I made them out of. You can also use the back page of a legal pad, makes good gasket material. A manila folder makes good gasket material if you need some. And these boxes you can break down. Cereal box works. You can break them down. They don't take up much space. That way you always have some type of gasket material if you need it. Okay, that wraps up the rebuild on this 256 Rake. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you subscribing. Till next time, see ya.